Oh, hello there. Well, I will be your presenter for today. My name is Yudhu Hazik, and I will be presenting characteristics of highly effective teachers. So what are they? Them being professional knowledge, meaning you are good at what you're teaching. Secondly, instructional planning. You strategize, making sure all your teaching are efficient. Thirdly, communication skill. You gotta make sure that you get into the student's heart. Now, fourth, reflective. As a professional teacher, you always have to reflect, feedback, listen to your students. The fifth, professionalism. You gotta be professional, disciplined, and last but not least, classroom management. You gotta make sure that your students study in a really comfortable position. First, professional knowledge. But what are they? Now, as a professional teacher, effective teacher, they have to have a good and deep understandings on the topics they want to teach. Why so? You are the teacher. Of course, you have to know topics they want to teach, tips and tricks, the strategy. These all must be in your head at that point when you touch the marker. Now, as a teacher, you also have to keep growing because that is what effective teaching must do. As the world is spinning, the time is growing, so do you. Keep in mind, people, remember and jot down. If you want to be an effective teacher, you have to have these 4 core strengths of an effective teacher. 1, facts. 2nd, concept. 3rd is principle. Last but not least, methods. Back at it again with second characteristic of highly effective teacher. So, what else do they do? Of course, instructional planning, strategize. So what is it? First of all, you have to identify the objectives of the lesson of the day, so they will be easy for you. Secondly, when you know the objective, you gotta make sure that you maximize the time of the lesson. You cannot waste any time talking gibberish, and all that you have to do is be efficient. Last but not least is to integrate assessment data. That is all how to strategize your planning.
So here are the key steps for instructional planning. So to be an effective teacher, first and foremost, we have to identify the learning objectives. Once we've done that, we design our assessment. But this design must be done by assessing our prior knowledge. Once we've done that, we select instructional strategies that suits our assessment. Then we use sequence and scaffold learning for efficient learning. Next up, plan for differentiation.
Next up, moving on with the third characteristics of highly effective teacher. Now, what happens or what do they do when the topic is too complex and it's hard for the student to understand what is being taught? Now remember, communication is number 1. What do they do is that this can be solved by using Q&A, so they can adapt and understand the weakness of the students. Remember, what differentiates between a good teacher and a less good teacher? Now, we all know that in our class, all the students differ. Some are very good at learning and some are less so. And that is why a good teacher understands between these differences and have to find a way using different methods to understand their needs.
So here is an example of differences in students. So we have Alice, who is a fast learner in the class. And because of that, she always asks questions and she's able to understand them easily. Next up, we have Bob. Well, Bob is a bit of a slow learner, but it doesn't stop him from asking questions. But maybe it takes time for him to understand the topic. And because of that, as a teacher, you must answer both students' questions differently based on their learning capability and style. Remember, they are not the same. Other than that, teacher also must provide additional support for struggling students and plan for extension activities for those who need more challenge. And that is an effective teacher, as no students are left behind.
moving on with the 4 characteristics of highly effective teachers. So, what do they do again? Now, remember, a good teacher always reflects. You have to regularly assess the methods that you use to teach your students because it's not always good with your first try. Now, how to do so? You have to assess this by looking at your students' data. Look at the results. Are they performing well or are they actually decreasing in terms of performance? Now, always reflect and listen to their feedbacks because the one that learns are them, even though you're teaching, but the main character is always the student. Now, if you're struggling, listen to your peers or like senior teachers, and of course, don't forget your students. Don't give up because to be success is always start with the first step. Moving on with the second last characteristics of highly effective teachers. So what are they? Now, for these characteristics, it is actually quite an underrated characteristics. Why so? Because not many people know that classroom management is actually a huge impact towards student success. But how does it work? Now, an effective teacher knows that a good classroom management able to cultivate a positive behavior, a good traits, and of course, making sure that the students are focused in the class. Last but not least, professionalism. Now, it may sound too formal, but the thing is, it's not all about dressing formally or being very formal with your students. Because actually, it's all about inspiring them, being a good role model. Because when the students are not at home and when they're at school, who are the parents to them? Of course, the teachers. Now with all this is why effective teacher knows the importance of professionalism to be a good role model for the student so that they behave like an adult, more mature than their age.
Especially in conveying their enthusiasm to their students, as this helps create an engaging and motivating learning environment.